Hello, welcome to Ian's POV. Interesting times. We have a new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. He was the Mayor of Greater Manchester and he won the by-election. And he's just walked into number 10. He has not been voted on by anybody. He's just been appointed, anointed, put in place. And yesterday he just walked in number 10. The Labour Party put in a democratic system to try and stop the far left gaining control of Labour. So what they did is MPs would vote on MPs to be the leader, and they would whittle it down till they had two. And then they would go to the membership, and the membership would decide who would be the leader of the Labour Party. That has not happened. They've bypassed that. So 1 minute he's got a by-election. He's basically been in the Commons for 10 minutes. I know he was in before, but that doesn't count. He's been a backbencher for 10 minutes, and all of a sudden, he's in number 10. Another one that's never done a real job, as one commentator said. And now things are coming out that are trying to make you feel better, trying to make you think that Labour are doing the right things to help us. All the things that Starmer said he was going to do could be what Burnham's doing. Gonna cut household bills. So it came out this morning that he was going to cut VAT on the electric bill for domestic households. I can't disagree with that. It's going to cut some money off the bill. I'm not going to disagree with it. But don't be fooled. This is to bribe you, to make you think he's okay. He wants reindustrialisation. Well, the thing is, all those two things have happened because we were in the EU. When Maggie Thatcher was the Prime Minister, she got the blame for all this. When it was actually her, what they called Tory wets. They were Tory communists, basically. Pym, Powell, Heseltine, that crowd. They wanted to be in the EU. Maggie didn't, but she got voted down. So we ended up not coming out of the EU, because we were already in it by then because of Ted Heath. You see, another Tory wet. Now, if we want to go back into the EU, we have to follow EU rules. And one of the rules is VAT on fuel. So Burnham is using Brexit because we couldn't have cut VAT on fuel if we were still in the EU. So Burnham, for all his, we want to be back in the EU, is using Brexit to be able to do it. So that's thank you, Mr. Farage. Do you get what's happening? Now, industrial, that's my thing. I'm an engineer. That's what I do. I've watched engineering companies in Birmingham and Bristol just disappear. They took manufacturing here and let the Chinese, Malaysians, Philippines, let them do it. They took a whole factory. We had a place called Cam Gears in Clevedon. I don't know, it must have been 100 people in there. Might have been more. And the guys that were working on the tool makers that were working on the machines went out to Malaysia and set the machines back up into Malaysia so they could lose their jobs. And this was happening all over. Birmingham. You go around Birmingham now, go around the old industrial area, and there's like warehouses, engineering companies, and it's just boarded up. There's nothing hardly there. They've turned a few into nightclubs. There's one's been turned into a go-kart park. I know, one's been turned into a MOT centre for cars. And you think, what you used to be able to get made in Birmingham was no odds to nobody. Well, I first went to Birmingham when I was 15. It's over 45 years ago. No. 70 now? Oh, God. Oh, 55 years ago, I suppose. Anyway, I first went to Birmingham when I was 15 years old. The company I worked for would go up to Birmingham about once a month, drop work off and pick work up. And you go down a cobbled street and there'd be a grass verge or park. Well, that used to be full of houses, and that was bombed during the war, and they never built it back up again. And there's old pre-Victorian buildings, Industrial Revolution stuff, with all the little square windows, big windows, but little squares. And you go down the road and you park your car, get out the car, and you go through a little alleyway. And it's all red brick. Engineering bricks, they used to call them. And it's all red brick buildings. And you go in, and it was like going back in time. I was stepping back almost like 100 years. These companies that were in there, that were making things, had been passed down from father to son. And they were making things. You had a spring maker. Just a lean-to with a forge, and he'd make springs. And that's all he did. That's all gone. Disappeared. And that was destroyed in the late 70s, early 80s. Because manufacturing was taken out of this country. Because the cost of electric went up. The cost of, they put the minimum wage in. All things that stopped manufacturing. Car workers wanted more and more money. They went on strike. That meant cars were being made abroad because they could be made cheaper than here. There was no balance. Yes, some of the workers did need more money. I'm not going to disagree with that. But it's like the railwayman now. What's a railwayman on? 70,000 a year, and he wants more money. There's got to be a balance. And that balance has been broken. Yes, we've got to make things. But the problem is, when I was unemployed for a few years, the company I worked for went bankrupt. Nothing to do with me, I was just an employee. And I went through 2 or 3 jobs. I had to pay the mortgage. So I ended up making kitchens to start with. And then I was in Avonmouth. And I was making car parts. And these companies were there making things. Nowhere to be seen now. All gone. We used to make kitchens in the kitchen factory. And bedroom furniture. I was a tool setter in the kitchen factory, setting up the drills, drill all the holes, put all the boards together, make sure it all fits. But when I worked in the engineering factory making car parts, I was brazing brackets onto brake lines, and the collets on one of the brake lines, for Jaguars they were, had collets on the end. So you put a nut on, then a collet, and then it had to be silver soldered because it couldn't be brass. And I can silver solder. That's what I was trained for in my apprenticeship. Was part of my apprenticeship was silver soldering. Tinning, working with tin to hold steel together, and silver soldering. Now you got braze, which is brass, and you weld braze. Silver solder has got melts at a lower temperature. It's like dull red rather than rosy red like you would with brass. And I worked in the factory, and they had 4 tool makers in a corner repairing all the jigs and the machines. 2 of the tool makers left. One, I think, through illness, and one got a better job. So they were 2 tool makers now. Anyway, we had some brackets, round ones, where they put nuts on and things. And they were too big. They were machined wrong. They needed putting in a lathe, taking down, and there was hundreds of them. I mean, there was hundreds of them. And the foreman came to me and said, "Can you work a lathe?" I said, "Yeah, I can work a lathe. Just show me how it works. Your lathe, big industrial lathe. Not my little Myford I got in the workshop now, but a big lathe, big industrial lathe." I said, "Yeah, show me how it works and I'll do it." So I started Friday afternoon. They said, "Can you come in Saturday and Sunday? We'll pay you time and a half Saturday and double time Sunday." I said, "Yeah, no problem." I needed the money. I worked for Friday afternoon, Saturday and Sunday to get all these parts done. Hundreds of them. Just taking them down, just skimming them to get it right. So that on the Monday morning, the guys could come in and start fitting them together and brazing them up. Then on Monday morning, I was taken into the office, the foreman's office, that is. "Ian, we'd like you to go into the tool room and help them out. And we think you've got the skills to do it." And I said, "Yeah, do I get more money?" They said, "Well, we'll come to that later. But if you can just help out and see if you get on, then we'll sort out the money later." I thought, "Oh, that sounds good, doesn't it?" So I went into the tool room. Now, this is happening to other companies all over the place. You've got accountants running companies, not engineers. They're not interested in making things. They want to make something and make money. That's all. They got blinkers on. All they see is numbers on paper. They don't see people. They don't see people that got families that need a wage to earn. So I went in the tool room. And I was there for, a couple of months. And then it's, on Monday morning, you're back on a bench. I don't know what I'd done wrong. I hadn't done anything wrong. Turned out they would have to pay me more money from Monday because I'd been doing the job, and they'd have to pay me toolmakers money. I got it done with the money. But they decided they weren't going to make any more toolmakers, so they were only using 2 because they'd lost a contract. And they were going to cut the staff. And they called us all up on a Wednesday, called us all up into the canteen and I was made redundant, along with everybody else. The foreman came up to me as I was packing my tools up. I had a little toolbox. I was packing my tools up, going to put it in the back of the car and go home. He came up to me and said, "Ian, we didn't want you to go. You're quite a useful guy to have around. But the bosses have decided that they can't afford to pay for more than 2 toolmakers. And we've lost a contract. That's why the people have been laid off. But there might be a chance to come back if we get another contract." I said, "No, I won't come back. I'm off." I was unemployed for 3 months. And I tried to get a job. I was 35, 40, something like that. I was an engineer. I was a craftsman. And nobody would take me on. I ended up working as a civil servant. It's the only job I could get. But I did that for 6 years. And then a gun shop in Cirencester said, "Will you come and work for us?" I said, yes, no problem. So I watched manufacturing disappear in front of my eyes. And now Burnham wants to bring it back. I'm all for it, mind. I don't think it's a wrong idea, but I think it's too late. And it was all closed down because we can let other countries make things and we can buy it in cheaper. Like, you look at Timaru and Banggood. You can buy stuff off of there cheaper than you can buy it in the shops here. I wanted some tools. Taps and dies. Because mine are getting old and they break and you can't afford to have them break. So I got a set from a shop. And it cost me 24 quid for a set of 3 taps. That's a tapered tap, a second, and a plug. That's how they go, 3 as a set. So then I joined Banggood, and I found exactly the same thing. And it was 12 quid. Anyway, then I wanted some stuff, and it was on Timaru. Teru. It's all Chinese stuff. I found them again, and they were 8 quid. £8. Well, it all comes from China anyway now. So, it's not going right. We have got to start making things, and we do make things. The first thing we got to do is keep the steelworks going. That's the first thing we got to do. The South Wales Steelworks and in the North Steelworks. Even if it's just to melt down scrap cars and produce ingots so that they can be turned into other things later. We have to keep the furnaces going. We make the finest silver steel in the world. The Americans want our silver steel. That's made in Sheffield. And it's gauge plate and silver steel, which is round bar. And it's ground. And it's almost like stainless steel. But it's wonderful stuff. You can make things out of it, and it's tough. The Americans want it. And we supply the Americans with that. We've got to keep that industry going. And then other industries will come off the back of it because we can make the steel that the engineering companies need. One thing we need is we need to be able to make spring steel again. I don't think we're making spring steel now. The spring steel I got in the workshop was made in, I don't know, Germany or China or somewhere else. I'm all for making things. If we make something, we can sell it. It keeps the economy going. It gives people jobs. But we haven't got tool makers. Because we can't train the tool makers because there aren't the companies there making things. The colleges have gone. There isn't a college now for wheelwrights. There isn't a college anymore for saddlers. That's gone. Someone's got to bring that back. Even if it's just for cottage industries. Because we still need saddlers. We need apprenticeships. And I don't mean apprenticeship in an office. I don't think that counts. We need apprenticeships with kids on the bench learning to file, to weld, to machine. They might come up with an idea in the future that they can make something and make money out of it and have our own small companies. In Bristol, there used to be hundreds and hundreds of small engineering companies. There was one engineering company was in a prefab that they put up during the war. And he had all his machinery in there, mills, lathes and everything. And he was making things for British Aerospace that were making Concorde. And he was a tool maker. And he was just somebody I knew. And British Aerospace were making all sorts of stuff. All they make now is the wings for the Airbus. They used to make planes. My mate used to work there. They were converting VC-10s into tankers for the RAF and for other countries. You know, we need to be able to make things. And the government have destroyed it and allow it to be destroyed over the years. And it's not just Labour. It goes right back to Ted Heath and Harold Wilson. We have to make things. And we have to be able to make things and sell them at a reasonable price. Anyway, I've said enough. This is long enough. And I think Burnham's doing the right thing. I'd never vote for him anyway. But don't believe all he says. It's giving you peanuts, giving you little tips, and say, oh, he's all right. He'll be okay. But what's he doing with... He's doing that with one hand, and what's he doing with the other? Be very sceptical. Anyway, Ian's POV. Bye-bye for now.